Felt like a weekend that could have been scripted in Hollywood. I mean, how about these plot lines? Manchester, for instance, one club suffered a shock home defeat, the other a depressingly familiar away day loss, and they blanked in round 8. While Liverpool scored yet another late Premier League winner, as Klopp's men look ever more like champions. But who will triumph in Germany, where the title race is tighter than an overstuffed lederhosen at Oktoberfest? And my word, there's an image with which to greet John Wilkinson. Sorry about that. Don't know where those words came from. We'll get to our other guest in just a moment, but let's have a quick look at this Premier League weekend, John, before we do anything else. A magnificent weekend, full of drama, plenty of goals, all sorts of stories, but I want you to pick only three of the biggest winners this weekend.
Oh, first off, I'm going to go for Liverpool. Massive win for them. Left it really late, but just about deserved it, of course. I'm also going to go for Newcastle. Boy, did they need that shot in the arm against old rivals Manchester United. And I'm also going to go for Wolves. No one saw that one coming. Don't care what you say. No one saw that one coming. And sets them up for a probable win against Newcastle at home.
Oh, we'll come back to that. Might have thrown Villa in, but I only gave you three. I wasn't being very fair on you there. This is the table. Mark Schwartz is going to join us in just a moment. So have a quick look at this table. Mark, I think you know what's going on here, right? My question to you, as you look at both top and bottom of this table, is which team do you think is the most surprising in terms of the position it finds itself in? Welcome to the show, by the way.
Hi, guys. Who's the most surprising? Palace, probably. I mean, if you look at the way they started the season, that was, you know, they looked like they were going to have a really long, hard season, but they've really turned things around of late.
Yeah, that's a really good pick, that one. All right, let's get straight into it, shall we? Top of the table stuff, that's where we've got to start right now, because it was remarkable. A howler, that's nice, isn't it, with Wolves and everything like that. It was a howler. City not really themselves here at all. He blamed nerves. Incredible to think that that's where we are right now. Another headline here, like this one, Lambs 0, Wolves 2. Okay, everyone has fun with the Wolves analogy here, but sluggish City, yeah, without De Bruyne, unable to break them down. Speedy, powerful Adama Traore hitting them late on here. Defence in tatters. Otamendi again looking like he was back to his old tricks here. Right, John, I'm putting words in your mouth here, but as we take a little look at what's happened, the match stats will tell us that City had shots but weren't very accurate with them. Wolves had a couple and scored.
Yeah, we knew that we were going to have a small percentage of possession, of course. But they rode their luck. Raul Jimenez came out and he said we knew what Man City were going to do. They were going to try and boss possession, but they always leave gaps at the back without the ball because they try and dominate overtly. So it was the first time I'd seen a side playing against Man City this season and leave two up top. And they seem to be getting in behind every single time.
Massive credit mark to Nuno Espirito Santo. Even the way he switched Adama Traore from a wing to a central position at the end, he just played it to perfection, didn't he?
He did, and I think that's the key. When you play against Manchester City, firstly, you've got to have that threat going forward. Wolves have certainly got that. I mean, Traore's potentially a special player. I mean, he's got it out, you know, oozes ability, but is yet to deliver. And on the weekend, I think was probably his first time that you kind of seen a glimpse of what he can do. Manchester City, nervous already at this stage of the season, that surprises me.
Yeah, that is the remarkable thing. I want to come back to that in just a minute. Pep had something really interesting to say, but we've had plenty of feedback already here. Victor with a detailed review here. Wolves caught them out, exact carbon copy type goals from Traore. City themselves couldn't find a way past them. That's right. Good point. They were missing KDB's creativity, and Otamendi didn't cover himself in glory. Otherwise, Fernandinho played better than a centre-back here. This is really good. The point about this one, isn't it, John, is when he's out, you miss so much. And they just never looked like getting through, did they?
No, and I think when Kevin De Bruyne plays, the opposition have to, if they want to carry that threat going forward, they have to gamble a little bit and almost leave him alone. If we have a look at key passes, just have a look there. Trent Alexander, where is he? There he is. Yeah. There he is. 7 appearances, 6 through balls, passes in opposition half. This is absolutely key. Yeah. This is it. Over 70%. And he's not just making things up, he's not just ticking things along, he's not just setting a tempo. Those key through passes, just scything teams down. And without him, they're just not the same threat.
Mark, what I want to come to now is this business about nerves. Only 8 games into the season, you are without De Bruyne, you're not doing well. Why on earth aren't you settling for a 0-0 in this game and instead pouring forward as if it's a cup final? Boy, oh boy, they got it wrong in their heads, didn't they, City?
They did, but you know what? That's not the way Guardiola's teams play, is it? They don't play for nil-nils. They go to dominate teams. They go to win games. And you know what? They've got so much talent on that football pitch. Forget that Kevin De Bruyne is not playing. I mean, I know he's a vital player. I know he's a world-class player. They've got David Silva, Rodri. You know, they've got Gundogan. They've got so many talented, creative players that just weren't on their game, and that's their problem. You know, last season, Kevin De Bruyne was out for long periods of time with injury, and they still won the league. So they've just got the rest of the players need to up their game.
Let's have a look at where the title race is going. I'm going to start with where we've been so far. If we just look back over Liverpool's most recent run of results there, I'm going to argue that actually they probably had it slightly harder over the first 8 games of the season than I think Manchester City did here. Yet they have managed to come unstuck against Norwich and now against Wolves. If we look at where this story goes next, Manchester United, but also Spurs, and then of course that big City game to come there. If we have a quick glance at Manchester City, there's a run that contains another couple of tricky ones. I would suggest Liverpool will be absolutely cock-a-hoop that they've got this massive advantage when they might have thought maybe just a little bit in front, not 8 points after 8 games.
Yeah, and I think Liverpool have to be very, very careful to think that way, John. I think they'll do well to take stock of things and have a look at where Man City have come unstuck and realise that, hey, every game is an absolute decider. So, look, there's tough games coming up. Let's not even start thinking about plotting a course all the way to the title.
Well, you say that, Mark will say that, because you're sensible people. Let's have a look at some feedback in here. Johnny Michael Tan, was match day 8 the defining week where the English Premier League title race took a turn? No, you say, quite rightly. 30 more matches to go. Raniel says, Liverpool champions of 1920. It's written, yet we're still 30 games away. Thoughts, see, this is beginning to happen here. Gan Tianeng at the bottom here. Liverpool were 5 points ahead on match day 5 and 8 points ahead on match day 8. Does this mean the Reds would likely finish 38 points above the Citizens come season's end? This is the problem, and this is one of the problems with the way that we deal with football these days, particularly on social media, the way we're so polarised. The press are into this already. Was this a title-tipping moment? That's the agenda that's going to be out there. That's the narrative, Mark, that we're going to see more and more and more. And what's going to happen is the anyone but Liverpool brigade are going to leap on this and they go, well, it's theirs to lose. It'll be the biggest bottle job ever if they bottle this one. Come on, guys, 30 games to go, right, Mark?
Yep, 30 games to go, absolutely. You know what, listen, Liverpool are in a fantastic position. 8 games in, they've had the perfect start. They're going to have a slip up. They're going to lose points somewhere along the line. And then it depends on how they react from that. Will it be right towards the end where it doesn't matter anymore? Unlikely. I think they'll slip up at some stage. You know, let's not forget last season in January they were 10 points clear and they lost. So we've got so much football to be played. Liverpool, hats off to them so far though.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, you know, for all that, if you ask me, who's likely to win, you've got to say Liverpool. They just look as if they tick all the boxes. They're ruthless when they need to be. They're getting the breaks when they need them. Yogi time. This was that thing about that amazing stat. It's not just in the Klopp era. It's going back over the Premier League era. They've scored match-winning goals in the 90th or later minutes, some 9 times more than anybody else. But it was just the fact that they turned to Milner and Milner delivered. These are moments, aren't they? These are big moments.
They are moments. And players like Milner are worth their weight in gold. I mean, I saw Jamie Redknapp put, he's a manager's dream, of course he is. And when there was a close-up of his face just before he stepped up to take that penalty, was there any real doubt? I don't think so. As cool as you like, stroked it in, no problems whatsoever. And this man here, he's by far their best player at the moment. He really is. And yeah, there's a certain drive and commitment from all the players in those red shirts right now.
Quick comment, Atava's been in touch. Thank you very much, Atava. Let's see what you've had to say to the show. 30 games for Liverpool and it's like 30 finals for City now. You know, Mark, this is really interesting. Atava's hit on something here. Klopp said the same thing. He said it just feels like every game is a do or die. It's incredible this early in the season.
Yeah, it is. But that's a repercussion of last season. You know, Liverpool knowing too well, firsthand the experience of doing so well, having an incredible season and still finishing second with, 96 points or whatever it was. They know that every single point is vital because they're playing, you know, they're direct competition with the Man City who are, should be, and are a phenomenal side. Obviously, bad result on the weekend. So they know the pressure's on and it will be like 30 more finals.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it? Hey, thanks so much. There's so much feedback flooding into the show. We love this. Suren Drinner, still early to decide the title. As a Liverpool fan, it's the best time of my life to live, watching others fall, and we're climbing mountains with the right hands. This is how we used to be 30 years back. golden times are back. You say, listen, people are getting carried away. You can understand that. I want to just drag this one back to Sadio Mane and how important he is right now, John. Mane makes the difference. Okay, look, we're going to come back to this decision in just a minute in terms of the penalty award here. But Sadio Mane is the man for Liverpool right now. And that's a great position for them to be, considering they've got Firmino and Salah to choose from as well.
What I'm amazed with Sadio Mane is his technical progression. He was already, I'd say, overdeveloped physically, and technically he just wasn't. I just think he was lacking one or two things. Not anymore. He's able to keep possession really well, plays in front of the opposition really well at the moment, links play up, and then of course he knows when he needs to be direct all over again. So difficult to handle. He's almost unplayable at times at the moment.
I just want to talk about the part he played in winning that penalty at the end here. I was kind of surprised, not that fans got upset about this or Brendan Rodgers, but that some pundits had a bit of a go. Alan Shearer, for example, I mean, you never want to call a pundit out because people call it as they see it. But he said, I don't think it's a penalty, I think it's a dive. This is a contact sport, etc. He takes a touch and decides to go down. I just take issue, Mark, with Alan calling it a dive. And I think this is why I do, because this came from, it was a Liverpool fan. But he said, when Lovren put his hand on Calvert-Lewin's shoulder, Alan said, you can't give someone a reason to go down. But when Brighton gave him a reason to go down, he says it's a dive. I don't know. I mean, I'm not necessarily popping at Alan directly here. I'm just saying anyone who said that was a dive, that's the wrong word to use, because if there's contact in the box, you're going to see that happen, aren't you, more often than not? Mane's going to go to ground, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely. And he's got all right to do so. And when I watched it, I thought 100% a penalty. I thought, Mark Albrighton, what are you doing? You know, miss tackle, timing, too over enthusiastic. I mean, that does him injustice there, those three pictures there, because it's still shots, it's frame by frame, and you can make any challenge almost look really, really bad. But you know what, for me, 100% it was a penalty. If it was a little bit soft, maybe, but at the time, I didn't think so at all.
Yeah, one of those ones where you say it's not a dive, but had he chosen to, he could have stayed on his feet. And that is just the way it is these days. Jeremy Shearer's been in touch. Thanks very much, Jeremy. I feel Klopp needs to be bold in his subs, take Salah off if he isn't playing well. Well, he got taken out, didn't he? So he might not be around next game. Even though he's among the goals, he's simply not been playing well. Mane and Firmino have been carrying the team this season. Klopp needs to see this soon so he can fix it and get Salah back to his best. That's why you have a squad, John. That's why you have a really strong squad as well.
Yeah, it is. He's been a little bit out of sorts, actually. He's been a bit sulky, to be honest with you. But you hope that knock's not too severe, because that looked a little bit nasty, didn't it? And in slow motion, it wasn't great. Look, that's why you have the squad, as you mentioned, John. Salah, he had that opportunity, didn't he? Just where he opened his body up and he just wasn't as clinical. Look, you've got to be careful how you handle players like Salah.
Yeah, but you kind of know he's going to come good, because recent history would suggest that. One last comment before we break on this subject here. Tanapon, someone who said Liverpool might lead until injury and some key players happen. It's like other team will not face the same problem. I think what you mean there is some people are saying that, you know, Liverpool will fall down once they start getting injuries. It happens to everybody. Look, they're in a great position, right? Guys, at the moment, it's going to take something unusual for Liverpool not to be in the hunt all the way, Mark, right? To the end of the season, yeah?
Form, you know, you talk about injuries, look at Man City. Look at defensively, the injuries they've got. They're still second. Yes, they're 8 points behind, but they're second with the injuries that they've had. So it'll come a point with Champions League, with all the other competitions, teams will suffer injuries, and it depends on how they cope with those periods.
Yep, absolutely. All right, wise words. We need to take a little bit of a breather. So much, so joyous, so far, so good, now so miserable. Because we're going to turn our attention to a couple of managers who just can't get a break. Certainly couldn't this past weekend. We'll look at what went wrong for United and for Spurs next. Well, you guys are prolific tonight. Thanks for all the comments. Keep them coming in. We've had a lot, of course, about City and Liverpool. We're going to turn our attention to United and Spurs next up. Are we going to see a manager go? Are we going to see Ole Solskjaer or Pochettino leave the clubs? Who's to blame at both of these clubs? What on earth is going on? I know this is going to provoke comments, so get them in soon. Welcome back. Keep those comments coming in. We've been inundated with them so far. Look at this one. It's only going to get louder amongst the viewers, I think. John Wilkinson, biggest one to talk about Manchester United, beaten by Newcastle United. Good headline, this one here. I really like this one. The long goodbye, as in Matty Longstaff. 19 years old, scores debut, wins the game against Manchester United. And the goodbye aspect of this one, of course, refers to Ole Solskjaer, because it's that time of the year when people start saying, hang on, international break, are we about to lose somebody? Well, first things first, John Wilkinson and Mark Schwarzer with us. John, talk us through this one. Newcastle, Manchester United, we laughed about this and said, oh my, two teams that are, what can we expect from this game? What we got out of this one was a significant result.
Significant result, and local boy doing the business as well. Yeah. Great tempo in this game, really was. Fantastic tempo, was exactly what Newcastle needed. They needed to take it to Manchester United. Manchester United, good Lord, where do you start with the problems? Where do you start with the problems that they've got? Wasn't great quality, we didn't expect it. But lovely result for Newcastle. Shot in the arm for them.
And elsewhere, if you look at this show's Facebook page, you'll see John and I talking about the wonderful Longstaff brothers story and everything like that. But it's about Manchester United we're going to focus right now. Before we do that, though, this comment came in from Wesley Shue, who was talking about the graphic we had with the Jokers at the top of the show. Whoa, disturbing graphics there. You can thank our wonderful design team, and in particular Chiu Ho from that team for that. Manchester United performance in Newcastle was similarly horrendous. Ole has to look at his players in the eye and know who are the ones he can count on to give 100% on the pitch. Regardless of salary or reputation, United's problems are deeply rooted, and just sacking Ole will not solve anything long-term, despite what fans may be feeling now. Always with the common sense there, Wesley, and that's not always the case in such an emotive time as this one, because we are focusing very much on this guy and whether or not things are going to work for him. Now, Solskjaer himself came out and basically apologised, said sorry to fans. Now, at times like this, Mark Schwarzer, you know, you say to yourself, what do we want? Do we want a manager saying sorry, or do we want David De Gea, for instance, coming out and saying what he had to say? Because he went in two-footed. The goalkeeper blaming the attackers. He said, it's not acceptable, not just this game, but the whole season. It's the most difficult time since I've been here. I don't know what's happening. We cannot even score one goal in 2 games. I don't know, Mark, as a professional yourself, you know, we're going to run some stats in a bit, talking about their lack of goals and all that. Are you comfortable with players being honest when they're asked what's going wrong? I mean, look at these numbers. He's not wrong. They are hopeless going forward, aren't they?
They are hopeless, and they're lacking a spark. They're lacking creativity. Solskjaer said it after the game as well. You know, they're trying to address the problem. The problem they've got, one of the issues they've got, they just don't have the quality, and that's something that they've known for a while. And I think they're kidding themselves if they do think they have it. It's a long old season for them. Does sacking someone like Solskjaer make a difference? That all depends on who's available. I'm not a fan of sacking people. I don't want anyone to lose their job. However, sometimes in football, those decisions have to be made.
Well, this is the thing, John. Ama Obi's written, and he said United made a huge mistake by changing so many managers after Sir Alex retired. If they stick by Ole for 2 more transfer windows, things might be better. This is the thing. Is there a plan in place? Are they sort of saying, Ole, just take it on the chin, you know, we're going to get you the players you want over a couple of windows, we'll be fine? Or do you look at the quality of the coach/manager and say, yeah, but can he get the best out of whoever they buy?
I don't think it is just one coach nowadays. I just don't think it is the head coach nowadays. I think it's his team. I think it's his technical staff. A lot of the coaches now, they have such great media commitments that they can't always get to the player, the individual player, constantly. You know, if he has a couple of transfer windows, I think things will get better. But there hasn't been at United, there hasn't been a long-term plan in place. Louis van Gaal, he came in, he spent over £100 million, and then with 11 players, and then Mourinho came in and he bought he brought all his players in, and it will just go on and on and on. And as Mark said, it depends who's available. And it's whether Man United want to spend even more money, a greater bulk of money. And I tend to think that they'll stick with Ole for a little bit longer and give him at least 1 transfer window to get something right.
Okay, yeah, it's not great. The other thing, if there's a link between 2 clubs that are struggling right now, it's the away form. Manchester United, wretched away from home. Spurs, last time they won was back in January against Fulham, if I'm not mistaken here. This is their last 6 here, but it's just that away form. And the worst thing about this Brighton one is it wasn't even a case of can they finally get that away win. Within 3 minutes, it was obvious that they were most likely going to lose this one. Now, Mark obviously is a goalkeeper. It was horrendous what we saw happen with that dislocated elbow for Hugo Lloris. But if we can just take it back to what happened, i.e. Lamela doesn't close down a cross floats in, and somehow Lloris just doesn't deal with it. What does that tell you about the way Spurs are mentally at the start of a game like this?
Well, I think for Hugo Lloris, at that particular moment, I don't know whether he was fully focused. I don't know whether he thought the cross was coming or not, or whether he just thought it was going to be a cross further out. He kind of got caught off guard a little bit. And then he was so relaxed in going backwards. By the time he realised he'd gone too deep, he was going to drag it in, and all he could do was drop it, as we saw. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of things have affected him. You know, midweek, he's had a bad run of form the last couple of seasons. He's made too many really big key errors that have led to goals. I feel sick for him, you know, in terms of the injury that he sustained. You don't wish it on anyone, but it's been a horrendous run for him, I have to say.
Yeah, let's have a little look at the fallout from this one now. I mean, whichever numbers you look at. I mean, this was up to Joe with this stat here. Lost more games in all competitions in 2019 than any other English top-flight side, losing 17, as many as they've won this calendar year. So now you start looking at where you apportion the blame. Let's have a look at Spurs. And, John, let's look at the manager. So some people are saying, right, that's it. Poch, here's the problem. If we look at that, the peak coming in 2016-17 domestically, but of course also making it to a Champions League final last time out, famously not spending an awful lot of money in terms of net expenditure, but no trophies to show for it. Has he taken them as far as he can?
I think he's taken this group of players as far as he can, and he's made a lot of those players better.
Yeah.
He certainly made Harry Kane a better player, and you would argue a few others as well. Eriksen's a much better player under his tutelage. The thing that worries me about Pochettino is at the moment, and I think he's handled himself well, I don't think he's necessarily handling this situation well. It's this general kind of like apathy that you see with him walking around the dugout. I like the fact that, you know, he doesn't scream and shout, so to say, but I don't think he's getting angry enough. I don't think he's getting grizzled enough. Players need to know, especially some of the younger players. It's unacceptable.
Yeah, I read a piece in The Athletic saying he's a bit distant right now. And in fact, at the start of the season, remember, he said, "Don't ask me, I'm just the coach. You know, I'm not in charge of things here." You're right. It's a good point you make there. Jerome Salazar says Spurs' Golden Age team will end at the end of the season. Poch will surely leave. And I'm sure even more key players will leave if the horrendous run continues, because in the end, Spurs, despite being a big team in recent years, no trophies to show for it. Mark, what can you see happening on the horizon? We're going to debate whether it's Levy or Poch or the players that we're going to blame. What's going on, and what happens next?
What happens next? Gosh, who knows? For me, it just seems like he's edging towards the exit door. And I don't think he himself is going to resign. I think he's kind of edging towards... He's showing everyone he's done everything he possibly can. He's not getting the support that he needs. If you look at those stats you put up there, those 5 seasons, he never finished any worse than 5th, and he spent £120 million net. Yep. I mean, tell me a manager in the league who spent that little or returned that sort of net return and had such a great return in the Premier League. I can't think of anyone. It's actually remarkable. So I think Spurs would be mad to get rid of him. But in the summer, there's going to be a lot of clear outs. You're going to lose 3 of your best players and most experienced players, and then there's going to be probably more that'll follow.
OK, let's get some more thoughts, maybe on the players now, and what's happening in the dressing room. Kenny here saying, I think Tottenham's problem is Harry Kane. When they came out of injury, Tottenham was never the same. I think what you're alluding to there probably was that Champions League final. And I just wonder what that did to the dressing room there. And I'm looking at Lucas Moura in particular, and he's on the bench again, and he must wonder what he's doing. Jermaine Genius, he came out with something, and Jermaine's got the club's best wishes at heart. I know that. I've worked with Jermaine a lot. But he said, I've seen this in Tottenham. I've been in the dressing room. I've been at the club when it happens. It stinks of that at the minute. And I think this is getting close to the truth, John. And maybe maybe Daniel Levy has to take some blame here, because in not bringing anyone in for 3 windows, right, he didn't just not bring people in, but he didn't have any options for when they needed to get players out. So there are players in that dressing room, as Jermaine says, who maybe aren't bringing the best mindset to the group.
Yeah, and you're always going to get, little fractions in dressing rooms. I know it's a nice idea for all the fans to look at their favourite club and think that all the players must get on. They're all pulling in the same direction. They all want the same thing. It's not necessarily the case. You don't always like the people you work with on a day-to-day basis. You hope that you can respect them. I think there's a few players there that want away, want new challenges. Some of them have come out and said as much. And the problem is, when they're looking after themselves in training, not giving everything, and they're letting contracts run down, and there's not a competition for places. There hasn't been a superstar player, a world-class elite level player that's come in to keep a few other players on their toes. Things get a little bit stale, and they get stale quickly, and I think this is what Jermaine Jenas is talking about there, and there's a few too many clicks as well.
Let's go from one pundit to another. Jamie Redknapp, in his column in the Mail today, writing this piece saying, Levy's lucky to have this boss. He will realise that once he's gone. And that's really echoing something that Mark had to say just now. You don't get many of these around, and you'd miss him when he's gone. Joginder Singh, all those non-spending transfer windows have finally taken its toll on Spurs. Overachievement, burnout. Yeah, I can see that. This is the thing, isn't it, Mark? You work so hard to get somewhere, and you can fall down that hill very, very quickly if you're Spurs, can't you?
Yeah, you can, and I think that's probably the most frustrating thing for Mauricio Pochettino. He's been able to accomplish what he has, and now it's a case of, like, let's push on. We're in the new stadium. Can we push on to another level? And he's not getting the support from above. Then you have those fractions in the change room. And I think Jermaine Jenas is absolutely right. I think there is something that's terribly wrong in that change room.
Okay, it's that time of the year. We've got to the international break, 8 games in, and unfortunately the bookmakers and a few people who are narrative-wise inclined to talk about this are saying who's likely to go if you work from left to right. They're talking about, in terms of odds, who they think's most likely. Marco Silva at Everton struggling. Ole and Poch we've spoken about. Steve Bruce, well, he got himself a result at the weekend. Ralph Hasenhüttl's having a hard time of things at the minute with Southampton, and surely not already. Quique Sanchez-Flores only just come in for Javi Gracia. But anyway, for what it's worth, that's that. Let's talk just quickly about the one that they think might be under threat right now, because Everton, another poor result for them at the weekend, and things have really fallen away badly for them. It leaves a lot of people questioning what exactly Marcel Brands and company have been doing. £200 million spent for what? A reaction to their defeat to Burnley at the weekend. It's frustrating, Everton, isn't it? Every time you think you see something good happening, they take a couple of steps backwards.
Yeah, there's no real thumbprint of Marco Silva on this side just yet. I don't know what he's trying. I don't know his go-to style of play at the moment. You know, he's tried to make things uglier at times. And Bamin, I think, is a fantastic player. I think he's a really good player. I'm yet to see the best of him, though.
Well, the problem is the trademark at the minute is conceding goals from set pieces. They are terrible at that, and that's coming back to haunt them time and time again. All right, time for another quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking about playing the kids, and it's something that Chelsea are compelled to do, and boy, they're doing it well right now. All right, here we are. Busy old show this one tonight. Still to come, we've got continental football, the Bundesliga, we've got Serie A, La Liga, but we're going to be talking about Chelsea and the kids and how Tammy Abraham and company are doing brilliantly. Next, a quick word on Arsenal, so loads of stuff still to come. We'll be back in just under a minute's time, so whatever you do, just keep those comments flooding in. See you soon. Great to have you with us tonight. Just a few days ago, Pep Guardiola said this. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of a cheeky segue here, but he was talking about Phil Foden, game time, and the requirements for Manchester City. He said to win the Champions League, to win the Premier League, and saying why I don't play kids is because I need to play the likes of Silva and De Bruyne and that. Now, I'm going to contrast this with what Chelsea are doing. Different circumstances, because they have to play the kids by and large, but boy, they're playing them brilliantly to great effect. Mason Mount is just a regular in that team. Tammy Abraham is doing wonderful things right now. And as a result of that, the one player that they did bring in at great expense, Christian Pulisic, is unable to get a game. As soon as Callum Hudson-Odoi is fit, Mark Schwarzer, as soon as Hudson-Odoi is fit, Pulisic's down the pecking order. And Frank had to come out and say, oh, come on, prove it. Do the work on the training ground, do it when you get your chance, and work your way into this team. Do you like the way Frank's handling this?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, listen, Frank Lampard's no mug. You know, as a player, He was hardworking. He gave everything all the time. Absolute professional. So he's seeing things. He's seeing things around the training ground. He's thinking, right, Pulisic, you're not pulling your weight. You're not pulling to the direction you should be. Hudson-Odoi, he's probably desperate. He's probably, frothing at the mouth to get back in that side. And that's why he's there, because he's worked really, really hard.
Yeah, we'll come back to his contribution a little bit later on in terms of his assist at the weekend for Batshuayi towards the end of that game. But comments coming in here. Mohamed Idris here. Chelsea young players performing great under Lampard, predicting top 4 finish of the season for them. Yeah, at the moment they look good for that. Up top here, Imran, how refreshing is it to see the young and exciting English front three at Chelsea throw in Loftus-Cheek, and the transfer ban could turn out to be a blessing in disguise for Chelsea. Yeah, add to that Tomori, John, who's doing great at the back, an area where they looked a little shaky early on. And yeah, it's working, isn't it?
It is working. It is working for now, and they're playing a lovely style. And Pulisic, by the way, when he came on, another bright spark, it was the fact that he looked really good. He got himself an assist, lovely little slide pass down the side.
Do you think he's right mentally with it? Because, I mean, the American media are giving it heaps about him not playing, but he should understand, shouldn't he?
I think he will. He's a smart enough boy. He speaks really well, and he's a cosmopolitan lad now. Speaks a few languages. I'm sure he'll be fine. I think he'll take off at Chelsea. He's the future of that football club. I believe that. Chelsea look really well balanced. Look, Tammy Abraham's going to go off the ball at one point, but they'll make it up somewhere else. They'll get the goal somewhere else. And defensively, they're always going to concede, but they're going to be great fun. Chelsea at the moment, you want to watch them.
It's interesting, isn't it? Just one quick one here, Mark, on this one. Frank went out of his way to praise Willian, because the one thing they mustn't do is alienate the older players with all this talk about the bright young English kids.
No, that's right. They're key. I mean, and the good ones, the ones that interact with the players, pass on that knowledge. Keep the younger players in check a little bit if they need to be. And Willian, he's a really good guy. He's quiet, but he when he does speak, people listen. And I think he's really matured, and I think he's a valuable member to their squad.
You mentioned Tammy just now, John. Not just because he's in my fantasy team, but I'm just watching him closely week in, week out, and I'm seeing a guy get better and better, right?
Yeah, this finish in particular deserves more credit. The first touch, and then to quickly get that effort off. With no space, I thought was absolutely sublime.
Look at him up there at the top with Aguero. He's in great company. Great company.
Conversion rate, anything over 30% conversion rate is fantastic. Absolute stellar. It's better than Robert Lewandowski's right now, lest we forget. But Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang and Sergio Aguero, these are proven goal scorers season in, season out, and he's right up there.
Let's get some more feedback away here. It's coming in thick and fast right now. Jerome, Kenny and Martin, thanks very much here. Martin, I'll just read your one out. Frank Lampard's got Chelsea playing with a great tempo, with a good mix of experience and youth. I like that point, because it is the tempo. They look like they're going to score every game. I've not seen a game where they're flat.
No, exactly. Look, make no bones about it. There's no great control in Chelsea, and long may that continue. To be honest, I mean, like I said, it's great fun. I don't think if they're 2-0 up, I don't think they can just control things in that central midfield area, string some passes together and take the sting out of the game. That's not their style. They'll still be hitting those channels for Tammy Abraham. Mason Mount will still be running with great movement ahead of the man on the ball. Good fun to watch, man.
Okay, just another comment coming in on Tammy Abraham. This was Jason Teo saying Abraham's amazing, can't stop scoring, and then asking, but he's still a young player. If Lampard keeps him playing him every game, I wonder whether he'll start getting burnout like Rashford. I'm not sure about the comparison with Rashford, Mark, but what about Tammy in isolation? Is he likely to get burned out? How do they rotate? Because they've got a squad.
Yeah, they do. I think that's something that needs to be managed. Manage his time. At the moment, when it's going well and he's scoring goals, let him go. There may be the odd game in between. There'll be cup games coming up. Maybe you'll rest them. So there are games where Frank will pick and choose when he plays him and when he rests him. Okay, yeah, it's understandable. Batshuayi is showing what he can do, and don't forget Giroud knocking around as well. Right, okay, let's talk about Arsenal. You mentioned lack of control earlier on. This wasn't a 1-0. This wasn't a George Graham 1-0. David Luiz getting a goal, but then David Luiz in defence. I mean, Callum Wilson, how he and Josh King didn't score in that game, you have to wonder. But it was very important 1-0 for 3 points for Arsenal to take them into third place, John. It's not your average 1-0, right?
No, it was an away win. It felt like an away win. It did feel like an away win. Even the goal smacked of it. Little glancing header at the near post from David Luiz. He looked a bit surprised when he scored it. Guendouzi, by the way, is Arsenal's best midfielder. I thought he was exceptional in this game because he got battered. He got absolutely smashed and he filled in the gaps without the ball brilliantly. But yeah, there wasn't much control in this game from Arsenal. There really wasn't.
But you know what they've done? They've got themselves into a fabulous position. If we take a little look at where they are in the league table, okay, that's what they've done so far. But the real interest for me lies in what they've got to come. So look at that. 1 point behind City, third place. And that run of games, Mark, Sheffield United away, Crystal Palace, Wolves, Leicester, Southampton, Norwich City. If they get things right, or anywhere near right, Arsenal aren't leaving the top 4, are they?
They shouldn't, but it's Arsenal, and they've been they've been known to get bullied, been known to go against the lesser sides and drop points. And I'm still not convinced by Arsenal. Yes, it was a good result, not necessarily a great performance. So still a long way to go for Arsenal, I think, to impress me, to say that they're a genuine top 4 side.
Yeah, I don't think we've got anything new to say about them, but I know you've got plenty of questions and comments about them, starting off with Ama Obi. Emery's too cautious. If he plays Arsenal's full strength, top 2 will be possible. Yeah, is he too cautious, John? I certainly thought he was at Old Trafford.
I think he has a lot of reasons to be cautious. His defence should frighten him. And I think it sends his midfield into overdrive. I think they have to run around a whole heap more because of their defence. I don't think he's too cautious. I think this is quite interesting.
Arsenal from Ganesh.
Yeah, Arsenal won, but in a very unconvincing way. And Unai can't continue with his experiment on formation. And I understand what he's saying. Unai Emery's playing different formations constantly. He really is tweaking it here, tweaking it there. There's still some young players there, still finding their technical ears and unable to take on enough information quickly enough. Guendouzi was filling in some gaps brilliantly, but I don't think he can play at that intensity week in, week out just yet. He's still a very young boy. Yeah,
what interests me, Mark, maybe to build on that, is the contrast with Chelsea. Whenever I've seen Arsenal play in cup competitions and unleash the kids, I think they're looking brilliant because Arsenal always deliver great kids. But maybe it's a question of you've got to have the right senior pros playing alongside them to shape them properly. And maybe Arsenal are a little short in that area, do you think?
Well, that's always been the big question mark about Arsenal anyway over the last couple of years, about various characters in that team. Are there any born leaders? Are there anyone who will pull someone by the scruff of the shirt, grab them by the arm and get them into order, into check, get them into discipline? I don't see it at Arsenal, and that's probably one of the biggest criticisms you can direct towards them.
Yep, okay, yep, there we are. We'll keep the comments coming in. We're going to leave the Premier League alone and think more continentally. When we come back, we're going to talk about the wild and wacky world of the Bundesliga, where it is absolutely tight at the top. All sorts of goings on here, and John and Mark paid particular attention over the weekend. If you follow the Bundesliga closely, you'll know what we're about to talk about. Some 2 points separating first till 7th, 3 points separating the top half of the table. It is brilliant. If you don't follow the Bundesliga, watch what we talk about next, because this is going to be an amazing competition this year.